And what is going on, NyynewsTV fam? This is the second episode of the Twinbill podcast. I am your host, Alex Guyevich, alongside Luca. Luca, how are you feeling today? How are you doing today? Just any thoughts that you have on your mind?
I'm doing good today. Not much going on with the baseball world. Obviously, my football team finished up their season this weekend in the New York Jets, but I'm very interested to see what we're going to talk about in our baseball subject and see what's the latest in the little of news around baseball.
Of course. I would just actually recommend see if your mic settings are good. If they are, if they're not, whatever. But I'll obviously outline some topics we could get to today. Obviously, as Lucas said, not really much to talk about because the work stoppage is still going. We are a month away from suspected spring training, but that being said, nothing has happened on the MLB spectrum, so we can't necessarily speculate too many things. Rachel Balkovec was hired as the Tampa Tarpons manager, breaking some barriers across the MLB and the minor leagues for female employees. Eric Chavez went to the New York Mets as their hitting coach. The Yankees let him walk out for an interview, and he went to the Mets under Buck Showalter, and we'll talk about the coaching staff. We'll talk about the K-Rod, which is the new Manning cast, except for Sunday Night Baseball. We'll talk about really if it's going to be exciting, what our thoughts on it are, who will replace David Cohn on the Yes Network, because he is doing now the Sunday Night Baseball telecast with Carl Ravitch, I believe his name is. We're going to talk about possibly best infield alignments for the Yankees coming up. And then we'll also talk about comparing New York Giants head coach Joe Judge and Aaron Boone. So, Luca, if you want to get us started on the Rachel Balkovec thing.
It's definitely very interesting hire. I usually am a guy who doesn't hire because of gender or whatever or anything like that. But yeah, if the Yankees hired basically solely on her skill, her background, I think it's a very decent hire. She is I think she's the first head coach, first female head coach, manager, should I say, in minor league baseball. So it's definitely kind of revolutionary on that front, but solid hire made by the Yankees.
Yeah, I do agree there. She was with the Yankees, I think, 2 years ago. In 2020, I believe she played with she coached with the Australian Baseball League or something like that. Then I believe
she was like for the Melbourne Aces a coach. No, that was somebody else.
Okay. So while you do your research, I'll try to skim up what I know about her. I know she was with the Yankees organization about 2 years ago in 2019. Before that, I think she had a job with the San Francisco Giants in their minor league system, or just as an intern overall. So if you have the list there, you can tell.
She was she was a quality control coach with the Giants in fall of 2019, to about fall 2019, from what I'm reading. As you said, she was also a coach in the Australian Baseball League during the pandemic, since minor league baseball was canceled. And she was also a part of the coaching staff for the Futures game in 2021.
Right. So a lot of interesting factoids about Rachel Balkovec. And I just think, just off the top of my head, I actually have been following her on her Instagram. Nothing huge to take away anyway. But with that being said, it just shows with the Futures game and with some of the minor league background she has, and just experience coaching some of these younger minor league players. And if you look at last year with the Tampa Tarpons, and just overall last year, this Yankees minor league system, it wasn't bad. There were two teams that probably finished under 500. The Rail Riders, I think, made the playoffs, or they were successful in some aspects. The Tampa Tarpons, they finished 73-43 under David Adams, the former Yankee baseball player back in 2013. He got called up with a bunch of injuries and stuff like that. But the year before, actually 2 years prior, he coached the Staten Island Yankees, and I don't think they were very good that year. But 2 years later, 2021, David Adams coaches them, and they get to a record of 73-43. Now, which one of the teams I believe it was the Tarpons. If it wasn't the Tarpons, I apologize. Didn't one of the Yankee teams win their minor league championship?
I would have to check that out, honestly. I'm
Because
gonna go.
I want to say it's the Tarpons. Maybe it was the Patriots. I don't think it was the Patriots, though. I don't think it was the Rail Riders because the last time the Rail Riders won a championship, it was under Al Padrique, who last time I checked was in Oakland as a bench coach or something like that. But I don't think he's there anymore. But just overall, a really interesting hire.
I see they were in the championship game, but they ended up being swept in 3 games by the Bradenton Waters. So there's not much going there.
Right. And just overall, we'll see. It's an interesting hire. And, you know, obviously we're not limited to any sort of gender, race, whatever, you know, in the MLB or on this podcast or whatever the case may be. You know, we're not like that. But with that being said, it's an interesting hire. We'll see what happens. And I really feel that if she has the background, if she has the quality, she can lead this team to a championship.
And new heights.
I'm talking, and new heights. I'm talking the Tampa Tarpons, of course. I'm not talking the Yankees. Then again, she'd probably be a better manager than Aaron Boone. I know Pete was making a joke on Twitter the other day about it, and then they actually took Pete's idea, but for the wrong reasons and for the wrong things, and actually hired her for the Tampa Tarpons. But a very interesting hire. Very interesting hire. So, Luca, if you want to get us started on the Eric Chavez topic.
So the Yankees, I think it was this past week or the week before, the Yankees let go of Eric. Well, they didn't let go of Eric Chavez. They let him interview for the Mets. Eric Chavez is now the hitting coach under Buck Showalter for the New York Mets. So it's a very interesting hire for them, knowing that Eric Chavez came out and said that he does not believe in the old statistics and basically batting average, but we'll see who the Yankees hires as assistant hitting coach. You know, some people actually came up with the idea. You know, maybe Carlos Beltran is a possible idea. And some people, I'm sure, would be opposed and say, oh, well, Carlos Beltran, he betrayed the Yankees by cheating, da-da-da-da-da. But Alex Cora returned from that scandal. A.J. Hinch returned from that scandal. So I don't see why not Carlos Beltran. I don't see why not Beltran should be on this team.
Right. Right. I do agree with you there. And if the Yankees are pursuing Carlos Correa, once the lockout is officially over, whenever the hell that's going to be, if they pursue Correa, why not pursue Beltran? If anything, Correa had more involvement either in and during the whole scandal and afterwards, talking the trash and everything like that. Beltran was pretty much quiet and resigned from his position afterwards, meaning the New York Mets manager, which was what, 2019, 2020, something like that. So there's that to be said.
It was 2020.
Yeah, 2020 he was hired and then he resigned. But I think that would be a good hire. And you've seen a lot of these Yankee players, and someone brought it up, and I feel it's a good talking point. Some of these hitters that the Yankees have had, and some just hitters across baseball, have really been ruined by analytics because they get into the head, okay, well, I don't need to hit for average anymore. I need to do this. I need to be,
what's the correct launch angle? What's the correct
yes.
It gets way too technical, in my opinion.
Right. And listen, batting average isn't everything. We know it's not everything. There's obviously other statistics, but go off the basics. Go off of the stuff first. That means winning. That means consistency. And who knows? The Yankees may have said inside, after Eric Chavez's comments came out, they could have said, hey, you know what? We don't like this guy anymore. But I highly doubt that actually happened because the Yankees are very, very analytically approached in that aspect of things. And we'll see what happens. So here's what their coaching staff looks like right now. Aaron Boone, obviously the manager, the pitching coach, Matt Blake, Travis Chapman is the first base coach and the infield coach. Was Eric Chavez as the assistant hitting coach. It still says that he is the assistant hitting coach on Wikipedia, but Wikipedia is very skittish in terms of people changing it constantly and all that other stuff. Desi Druschel is the bullpen coach. Casey Dykes assistant hitting. Mike Harkey is the bullpen coach. It says 2 bullpen coaches, so this may not be totally accurate.
No. It might be accurate because the Yankees are looking to add several assistants. So
okay, Dylan Lawson is the hitting coach. Carlos Mendoza is bench coach. Luis Rojas, the outfield and third base coach. Tanner Swanson, quality control and catching. Brett Weber, the assistant coach and instant replay. And then we have no bullpen catcher right now. It used to be Rodley Haddad, I think his name was, in Jason Brown. But they obviously are looking for a bullpen catcher. And listen, I'll do it. I have no catching experience, but I'll do it. Just as a joke. But with that being said, how do you feel just generally about this coaching staff compared to the years prior under Aaron Boone?
Overall, let me just say first, I think another decent candidate for the hitting coach position, the assistant hitting coach rather. Some people have actually mentioned former Met, former Yankee, former Marlin, former Blue Jay, former Dodger Curtis Granderson. I mean, I liked him back in his day, back in his Yankee prime. Loved him there, but he's not a bad hire. I mean, it looks like the Yankees are trying to add more coaches, but they got to add. To me, it's not about adding more coaches. It's adding about the right coaches to connect with these players, to improve these players, develop these players, because we all know the manager ain't going to do shit.
Right. And Granderson was actually being considered for the Mets managerial job before Showalter got it. And here's the thing. I feel just a tiny bit better about this coaching staff than I did the past 4 years.
Thankfully, we don't have Phil Nevin anymore.
No Phil Nevin, no Marcus Timms. But there's a lot of things that get me a little scared, weary, stuff like that. Get me a little worried, whatever. The Yankees are hiring from within. And you know my feelings about my other sports teams when I talk about hiring within. Now, it's not totally bad because Dylan Lawson, I believe, had some time with the Rail Riders, and they were actually a pretty good offensive team. They were top 5 in batting average, top 5 in home runs. They were, I think, top 2 in stolen bases or something like that. So obviously that goes to base running.
The offensive production was there. Yes,
to put it just right there on the spot, the offensive production was there. Something missing from the Yankees last year. But once again, not going with an outside approach can really hurt you sometimes if it's not the right candidate. Let me paint an example. And I know, yes, I'm going to make a Giants connection. Kevin Abrams was hired by the New York Giants in 1999 as a salary cap analyst. Now, he was with the Yankees. Obviously, I'm crossing the topics, but he was with the Giants for some of the good years, 2007, 2011, 2008, 2009. Okay, with the L. Okay, your team had the same record.
See, it's Alex, I got to disagree with you. It's kind of different for me because the Yankees farm system is actually pretty successful. While the Yankees...
but I'm saying, yes, the Abrams thing has more negatives to it, but sometimes you don't know how those inside guys are going to be controlled at the major league level. Hopefully.
But it's not like you're hiring guys from the major league team. You're hiring from the guys from the minor leagues who have really had success. The coaches who have had success. You see all the success down there.
Right. I'm not disagreeing with you. But supposedly, Marcus Timms came up in 2018 with more of a minor league hitting mentality, and look how that turned out. The
Yankees are looking to change their hitting philosophy.
Right. The Yankees tried changing their hitting philosophy. It didn't work this past year, and he was seen as the ultimate enemy. Besides the players on offense like Gary Sanchez and Gleyber Torres and Joey Gallo and all these other guys. But I'm just worried because, you present the argument of, it's not major league, right? I get your point there. But at the same time, Marcus Timms was promoted, and look how the offense did during his tenure for the most part. And, that just scares me with Dylan Lawson. Also, one of the positives with him, I believe he is close with Carlos Correa. And some people may like that. Some people may not like that. But with that being said, that's a positive. And something I just want to point out about this coaching staff as well. Obviously, once again, they're looking for more assistant coaches, which obviously goes to the point that Aaron Boone isn't doing his job because they need more and more and more assistant coaches. I feel like they don't have enough major league experience on their coaching staff. Aaron Boone, I believe, is the most experienced in terms of being a major league player in his time. Matt Blake, I don't think he was ever a major league baseball player. If he was, I'm wrong. Travis Chapman, the first base coach, had one at bat in the major leagues a couple of years ago. Desi Druschel, honestly, never heard of him. I don't think he actually was a major league baseball player. I think he was actually, or was somebody else I was researching. I think he or somebody else was the pitching coach for the Iowa Hawkeyes baseball team. So there's that. But just my point overall, losing Eric Chavez, yes, you don't have to worry about him taking away the whole mentality of batting average. You don't have to worry about that. But I feel like adding a Curtis Granderson, adding a Carlos Beltran, there you have some major league experience. If they're tough on you, they're tough on you. If they're tough on you, but will let you slide sometimes, they are what they are in terms of coaches, players, their personalities, because I think Curtis Granderson is pretty laid back. I think Carlos Beltran's pretty laid back, at least from a player's perspective. But with that being said, I just feel like if the manager's not doing the job and they looked, as in the New York Yankees, they looked for a bench coach or a coach like that was a former manager, like a Buck Showalter or whatever, to be a bench coach or whatever. I know I keep rumbling and mumbling, whatever. But with that being said, that kind of points to the fact that your manager is not doing your job. You need more major league experienced guys. That's honestly what I think this coaching staff needs. And for assistant hitting, I think you need that. But obviously it states right now that there are two bullpen coaches. So maybe there's two hitting coaches and then an assistant. Honestly, I think that would prove just so much better for this team because, yeah, we already know the bullpen is good. We know the pitching's good, but the hitting is the thing we need to really brush up on. The fielding as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Overall, I somewhat agree with you. I think you're also worried about if players overstep the assistant coaches, but because now if you go with your philosophy, Alex, which you got high, in which you would hire a Curtis Granderson or a Carlos Beltran who have done it before, have hit in the major leagues before, have long spanning careers, you're essentially saying let the coaches reign dominant over you since they've done it before. They have attributes, they've had accolades. Curtis Granderson's been an all-star before. Carlos Beltran, many-time all-star. But I'm saying bringing on these minor league guys is not such a bad thing since they went with a philosophy that works. Now, will it work with the major leaguers? I don't know, but it seemed pretty bright in the minors to me.
Right. And once again, that brings me back to my point where I said, yes, bringing in Dylan Lawson could be a good idea because of the success he had with the minor league teams in the Yankees farm system. But once again, obviously this could fluctuate with the candidates if they try bringing in another assistant coach or whatever the case may be, just anywhere really. Is Brian Cashman going to control the philosophy of somebody that comes up from the minor leagues as a coach, or is he going to step back? Because we know how the Yankees are.
My opinion, he should step back, but I think the assistant coaches will try to converse with the analytics department. So We'll see.
And hopefully, the hitting gets better overall, which is one of our main concerns with shortstop and first base and all these other things. Not just defense, but hitting as well. And that's just one of the things that has to run through your head if you're a Yankees fan, if you're a content creator of some sorts. Hitting, defense, all that stuff, but that's just my worry there. And once again, I will stick to my point. Yes, Dylan Lawson looks like a good hire right now, but I do believe they need to bring in somebody who's had major league experience, like a Curtis Granderson, like a Carlos Beltran, those guys overall. So if you have any final thoughts, please put them in.
I think we both make good points, but I'm leaning toward minor leagues. But I would not be upset if we bring in Curtis Granderson or Carlos Beltran.
Yeah. So before we go to infield alignments, let's talk about the new K-Rod. Now, obviously, usually on our podcasts and stuff like that, we really don't go into ESPN, Yes Network type crap. And that's probably something we're not going to go into too much on here, but also it's a new thing. And with that being said, what is there really to talk about? That's, Carlos Correa is, possibly signing with this team or whatever. There's a work stoppage going on. So with that being said, what do you think of this new K-Rod thing before we go get to the Yes Network and some candidates to really replace David Cohn? What do you think of this new K-Rod thing overall?
Overall, I like the idea, but I think we were talking about this in private. You said it could be like one of those. It could be. It's like the second thing to Manicast. It's like making a sequel to a movie, right? Like, first one is for success or whatever. Second one's for money. So maybe ESPN hopes this is a moneymaker and a really good, draws viewership. I like the idea, in my opinion. Maybe it's a bit repetitive. I don't know, but I hope that when both are on the air, both Kane and A-Rod, I hope they tell it like it is for what's going on in the baseball field.
See, I find it a little weird. And I'm going to ask you a question after this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have A-Rod, right? And a lot of people don't like A-Rod. Obviously, the steroids come into play. And the way he really talked about the Yankees on ESPN on Sunday Night Baseball. Obviously, he said he wanted the Yankees to try to trade for Ramon Laureano. I know I'm butchering that, and you get
Laureano.
Okay, you don't have to yell. People are wearing earbuds.
It's such an easy name to pronounce, and you're just butchering it. It's Laureano.
Okay, you know what? I feel bad for all the people wearing headphones.
There's an E. It's not Lorano with the A only. It's E-A. Laureano. It's such a simple name. A 7-year-old could pronounce that.
I don't believe that at all.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, back to my point before I got brutally interrupted. So he was making a couple of things, and then people started mocking him on social media. Oh, the Yankees should trade for Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani too. Like, shut up.
I think it was all hypotheticals. I think he was making a joke about it, but
no, I mean, A-Rod was being serious though. I'm talking about A-Rod specifically, and I don't try to smart ass a couple of things in sports because I know some of my teams are terrible. I don't try to act like, oh, this guy is the best guy in the room or this guy is better than this guy or whatever. But for all the people mocking him, wasn't he an assistant to Brian Cashman before he took the job at ESPN?
At one point he was.
Exactly. So he was a baseball player and he had front office experience for however long he did. So, and it's not like he said, oh, the Yankees should trade for, I don't know how many bad players there are out there. It's not like he said to trade for somebody who's just historically terrible. He didn't say that. Ramon Laureano, he is a decent player. He said Christian Yelich, but Christian Yelich struggled this past year and was given a huge contract, and that's really unlikely for the Yankees. But with that being said, he does tell it like it is. He says they should really just go back to the old school approach a little bit and lay off of the analytics. That's what I like about A-Rod. Now, you compare that to Michael Kay. Obviously, we all have our thoughts on Michael Kay. Pretty sure most of the NYY News family is not really a fan of him because some think he's arrogant, some think he defends the Yankees when they shouldn't be defended, whatever the case may be. But I happen to think he just holds his opinions his true opinions on the Yankees and just says a bunch of blabber stuff on his show. Now, I'm not criticizing him as a journalist or a person or whatever, but in terms of Yankees stuff, it's not there. I don't think he's giving his true opinions. Does he know better than what he's giving in terms of his opinions? Is his real thoughts smarter than what he's giving out? I think so. So that's going to be a little weird. If I'm making assumptions here, the Yes Network has a little more control on K, and if he can't say the things and if he can't agree with A-Rod, if A-Rod's criticizing the Yankees or whatever the case may be. So I think that's really interesting. In terms of the new Sunday night baseball broadcast, I haven't listened to Carl Ravitch much, but I think David Cohn does fit the job. He fits the mold as an analyst. I think he does give you an analytics perspective. He also gives you just an old school perspective sometimes, but I think he is good for the job, and congratulations to him. You obviously get those people out there, oh, they're doing this because it's just Yankees. Shut up. Anyway, back to another point I'm going to make before I let Luca talk, because I've been talking for a little while here. I really have mixed reviews on this idea because obviously A-Rod, I like him more than other people do. But with that being said, the Manning cast is the Manning cast. It's funny. It's quirky. They have guests on. They have fun. They do what they do, right? You have Eli Manning being the jokester. You have Peyton just analyzing the film and doing whatever. But can you really say the same for Michael Kay and A-Rod? Once again, like you brought up.
Let me just say, the question is, will they have the same chemistry?
Right. Like Peyton and Eli are brothers. And Michael Kay is an announcer. I don't know how often he talks to Alex Rodriguez. Obviously, when A-Rod was a Yankee, there was more conversation there probably. Now that he's not a Yankee, now that he's been with ESPN the last few years, there's probably little interaction. So I'll say this before I give you the floor in terms of your thoughts. It may be a success. I'm not saying it won't be a success. I'm not saying it's going to be a failure or whatever the case may be. I just don't think it's going to be as good as the Manning cast. I don't think it's going to be as good because the Manning cast was original. It was a fun thing. It was a new thing at the time. This one's like, you're just basically doing K-Rod because of the Manning cast. But with that being said, K-Rod may be successful. K-Rod may be its own thing, but the Manning cast is the Manning cast. Overall, I would just prefer the Manning cast. And I'm a bigger baseball fan than I am a football fan. Baseball is always first for me, but overall, I just don't think it's going to be as good. As you said, it's like a movie and then a sequel after that. And then, it's not as good as the first one. So I'll give you the floor on that.
It could be a moneymaker. It could be successful. I hope both really show their true talents and true everything. But I don't know. I like Manning cast better, as you said. It's more original. It's more funny. But I don't think they'll have the chemistry, honestly.
Yeah, but you think it may take a few weeks?
It might. Yeah.
All right. So the next thing.
And plus, let me ask this: How often are they going to do this?
That's a good question because they're not doing it every Sunday.
Oh no,
that would take away from ESPN, and ESPN would probably be pissed.
And remember, Michael Kay has to do Sunday Yankee games, so
I wonder how that's going to be. Probably during, if they're on the West Coast or something, or they're in the Southeast or whatever the case may be. I don't know in specifics, just off the top of my head, who they play this year. But if they're on the road, I'm going to anticipate Ryan Ruocco is going to do a away game if the Nets aren't playing, if the Nets are not in that,
playoff
contention, time schedule, whatever, time span, however you want to call it. So I do anticipate that Ryan Ruocco would probably take over on Sundays. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe somebody like Bob Lorenz. Probably not, though, because Lorenz hasn't done it for years. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head who would be the number one guy, because if K's doing his thing and if he's doing it from wherever he's doing it, and Ruko maybe is doing a Nets game or he's doing a game on ESPN, because I think he does ESPN or TNT basketball.
He does ESPN.
Okay, he does ESPN basketball. That's what I thought. So who's going to be the number one guy on Yes? That's my question. Obviously, David Cohn. He's gone, or at least he's not really a number one guy as well. Then you also have Ken Singleton, who retired full time. So there's that. But that's going to be really, really interesting. Now, let me ask you this. Would you or would you not take, if there's a spring training this year, because hypotheticals are a huge thing with this work stoppage, would you want to see a Michael K. John Sterling thing like they did?
It wouldn't be such a bad idea.
Yeah. So the next thing is David Cohn is getting his time limited on Yes, obviously, because of him going to Sunday Night Baseball. Who do you think are some candidates to replace him as that analyst type of guy? And they usually stick to a 2-man, 3-man booth.
But you obviously got John Flaherty, you got Paul O'Neill, Jeff Nelson could be a guy.
I think he steps up personally because he's a pitcher. I think he steps up.
But I'm not totally sure, honestly. I'd have to go dig deep for that.
You know who they should bring back? And it's not going to happen?
Lou Piniella.
Yeah. I don't know. Just when I was a kid, when I was younger, I always used to enjoy him just being there and giving his thoughts on stuff. I didn't think he was that bad. Maybe he was bad. I don't know. But I thought he was just a decent guy, at least in the broadcast booth. But I think Jeff Nelson, because he's a pitcher as well, does step up and take the void that David Cohn leaves. And then also, in my opinion, now he obviously has the Fox Sports gig, and he was honestly one of my favorite players because he was so energetic in his time with the Yankees, and maybe he wasn't that good. Nick Swisher. I think he could be a good guy in the booth
Swisher.
If they were to make some sort of deal with Fox where he does the Fox baseball on some days and some days he does Yes Network, whatever the case may be. I think he would be a good guy in David Cohn's shoes. If not, you put in Jeff Nelson, but I honestly don't have any other candidate. Plus, you also have Buck Showalter leaving for the Mets job. So that spot is open as well. So you have one hole and you have another hole, I guess. So best infield alignments possible for the Yankees. They will do comparing Joe Judge and Aaron Boone, and then we will get you guys out of here. So give us some of your favorite alignments, or at least preferred alignments, if the Yankees were to make some moves after the work stoppage.
After the work stoppage, my personal favorite infield would probably be Urshela at third, Correa at short. At second base, it would probably be LeMahieu. And first base, a new first baseman would be Olsen, Freeman, or Rizzo, as we talked about in the previous show. I prefer Freeman, honestly, but it doesn't matter if any of these three.
Yeah. So second base, I would take LeMahieu. I'm not putting anyone else there. I'm not putting LeMahieu at first. I'm not putting him at short. I'm not putting him at third. I don't think that's a good idea at all. So there's that. Third base, honestly, I've talked about it in the past. Jose Ramirez doesn't sound like a bad option. I don't know how he is as a defender. I know he's generally just a bigger guy. Maybe Urshela is the better defender, but I know the better hitter is Jose Ramirez. So I wouldn't mind at the hot corner taking Ramirez, but also you have to have very good defense at the hot corner as well. So either or for me. Shortstop, I would take Correa. Story, I think he's a decent fielder, but once again, I mentioned last podcast episode that I'm a little weary about him because of just the durability. And the Yankees tend to have a lot of injuries, and injuries happen to every team, but you have to plan for injuries, and they better have a backup plan if they do sign Story after the stoppage. And same thing could be said for Correa, because Correa had a few games missed in the last few years with a back injury, I think, and a couple of other injuries with the Houston Astros. So they will need to probably get a decent backup infielder. Maybe that's Torres. They keep him. Maybe they do something else. You also have Volpe and Peraza in the minor leagues, like a lot of people want to be the starter. I don't think that's the smartest of ideas because we're not obviously looking to win in 2026. We're looking to win right now.
Yeah.
So my favorite defensive alignment in the infield would probably be Urshela, Correa, LeMahieu. I need to choose between Olsen and Freeman. This is tough because one's possibly a better defender than the other, but Freeman, he just brings a lot to the table. Who would you go there?
I'm taking Freeman.
I'm going to take Freeman too. So from first to third, Freeman, LeMahieu, Correa, and then Urshela, and then any other scenario, you could probably have Olsen at first, probably have Story at shortstop. You could have Torres at second, but I would rather just trade Torres. I would rather just get him out of the Big Apple because, yes, maybe if you bring Correa, he does kick Torres in the ass a little bit about his play style and his lack of effort sometimes. But what if the Yankees elect to sign Story and put Glaber at second and move LeMahieu to first? Is Story really going to kick Glaber's ass when he's not doing anything? Right. Maybe Freeman does if they sign Story and Freeman, which I don't think is possible. I think that's a miracle scenario because Freeman's going to cost and Story's going to cost, obviously. But Ramirez also you could throw in at third base. That's a really good option that I like as well. So, any final thoughts on that aspect?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head.
All right. Our final topic. So at the time of recording, Joe Judge for the New York Giants is still the head coach, which is something that I don't like. And a lot of Yankee fans that are Giant fans like to compare Aaron Boone and Joe Judge. So off the top of your head, without looking at the document, name some similarities and name some differences.
Well, I said Aaron Boone is the head honcho of his team, and he actually experienced the playoffs as a head honcho of his team. Joe Judge has not. He's not led his team to the playoffs. You also think in similarity, Joe Judge and Aaron Boone come up with I've seen some good things and some pretty bad losses. Losses overall. You shouldn't be saying that in a loss. Maybe you've seen some good things, but pointing out good things in a loss is never a good look. It's like you're justifying losing.
Make excuses to justify losing. So I'll give you just flat out my list, and then we can get you guys out of here. So similarities, have robotic pressers, the quotes of turning the corner, and for the Giants, internal progress, got to clap for progress, make excuses to justify losing. The beat writers love them and make mouthpiece articles, especially Aaron Boone. And then you have Ralph Fagiano and some of these other guys for the Giants. Both have somewhat incompetent owners, Hal Steinbrenner and John Mara. Both have lopsided coaching staffs, where for the Giants, the defensive coaching staff is good. The offensive coaching staff is horrible. And then you have the pitching coaching staff, which is good for Boone. Hitting coaching staff beforehand was very terrible. And teams regress every season. Obviously, the Giants had 4 wins compared to the 6 last year. And then, the Yankees barely made the playoffs this past season. Difference is Boone has been in the playoffs as a head manager, head dude, whatever you want to call it. Judge was tough on his guys. Boone just loved being soft on his guys, likes to be the therapist. Boone has winning records to show for. Massage the ego.
Yep.
Boone has winning records to show for it, and Boone has never won a championship. Joe Judge won one as a member of New England as a special teams coach, but he was never a part of a championship as a head coach. Not yet, at least. We'll see what happens. But from me and Luca, guys haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, turn on the post notification button so you get notifications when any of these podcasts are premiering, live stream, stuff like that. We appreciate you guys. NYY News TV, obviously a great family to be a part of. Peace out, guys, and we will see you later.